thank you so much to the organizers for having me. I think the big waves of inventor analysis patterns came after Zvi had left us. But I think you would also see it as one version of lighting candles in the dark. We have had a lot of candles in the dark, but I think it is still an instructive exercise. But I want to be, in Zvi's spirit, be very clear here that we have a particular understanding of what inventors is here. These are inventors that are listed on patents. There are other inventors that are not listed on patents that produce trade secrets, for example, and they go unnoticed in our work unless they also do patents, which they often do. Okay, but I just want to make that point that we're slightly narrow here and we do what we do best. We go where the data are. This is with two wonderful co-authors, David Heller and Paul Momtaz. And essentially what we do here is we examine the marginal income per patent. What is the inventor getting out? And we're trying to get behind what are the compensation patterns here, and what does that possibly mean for labor market mobility and for firm performance? Inventors are important employees, inventors in the narrow sense that I just highlighted. And the compensation structures that they face are, of course, crucial to either induce them to exert effort, but also for attracting them, because there is a tremendous amount of mobility among inventors. When we started this project, we thought, well, we're looking at Germany. Germany is well known for its stodgy labor market. Very little we can find. Okay, we were encouraged by the fact that our predecessor papers were in Finland, which is also a little bit stodgy in terms of the labor market. I'll say more about that. And the big competition was in the United States, where everything is dynamic. Turns out Germany is very dynamic in this. So we're looking at a key incentive device when we study this marginal income per patent. Now, not new, stylized fact, most inventors are in firms and are compensated as employees. Firms are the owners of those patents, okay? Forget assignment and these things. These are just legalistic constructions in order to get the property right over from what is in an initial moment that of the inventor to the firm. And systems do that differently. And in Germany, we actually have an Employee Inventions Act, which says the inventor has to report to the firm that there is an invention. The firm then says, yep, I want to have that, or I release it to the inventor. And then the firm decides whether to patent it or to turn it into a trade secret or whatever. So that act, also in true German spirit, is a bit bureaucratic. It gives three different ways of computing the income that the inventor gets out of that, because the inventor, he or she, is entitled to that. Okay, so it sets a title. Fortunately, there's a lot of leeway that we can think that there's a lot of discretion, and that employers can use this discretion as a labor market instrument to give more or less, to attract more or fewer inventors. So what we do is we want to add to the literature, which has quite a number of predecessors. So Otto and Lotta Toivonen Vernanen went first with the 2012 paper. There are other papers that look at team composition in inventor teams. Philippe is lead author on two papers that also use the Finnish data. By the way, I will not dump on Finnish data. I will only say that there are certain advantages of German data sometimes. But what we want to do here is we first of all want to estimate these private returns to inventors. We want to show you that firms may exploit price-setting discretion to attract inventors, and that there are also implications for labor market dynamics and mobility. So, what is this marginal income per patent? I'll show you in a second. Do differences affect the outcomes? I think they do, and I'll show you that. So we use a new link between, and it's good that Francis is here because he has pioneered this literature of employer data sets. This is one of them. I'll tell you a little bit about the data, because it took a long time to construct that data set, carry it over to the Labor Market Research Institute, and turn that into something that is publicly usable now. You can use that at a distance. You don't have to be in Nuremberg at the institute. You can use it on your computer at home, and if you read our paper, we'll show you how to do that. We use that to estimate the returns, and then go into the additional analysis. So here's the pitch about finished data. Finished data is wonderful, absolutely fantastic, because you have these wonderful IQ measures and other measures that come out of military service and so forth. For our purposes, where mobility across firms is important, it has one giant disadvantage. There's one large firm that does most of the patenting. There's very little in terms of cross-firm movements, and on the right-hand side you see that there's a little bit more of that potentially. Okay, there are more firms, single firms that patent, and there's more cross-firm mobility that we want to observe, because that's an important part of what we do. Okay, since I might run into time constraints, what do we find? Over a time window, we pick a long time window, -2 + 9 years around the invention. We follow essentially Philippe and his co-authors on that. Relative to filing, there is quite a bit of gain in a monetary gain for inventors, roughly 1 year's salary. That is commensurate with what other people have found in the literature. Now, not so well known, firm-specific factors explain half of that. Why is that important? We all are used to saying that patent value is idiosyncratic to firm, or that it is firm-specific. Yes, it is, and we can show that here. Okay? Because there are complementary assets and so forth, and one firm can make more of the patent, or maybe the patent has been tailored to the complementary assets, and so forth. And the third thing that we show in the paper is that the height of the marginal income per patent correlates positively with inventor mobility, especially mobility prior to the filing of the patent. And that's an important insight, because everything is possible here, right? So at some day, the patent is filed. Does the inventor lose bargaining power at that point? Do they gain bargaining power because they have complementary knowledge that is used, or that may be used or needs to be used in order to implement the invention? Or do they carry knowledge around? They are known as inventors, they go to trade fairs and find the best firms to go to and contribute their knowledge there in the patenting process. Okay? So all of these things are possible. We have very little guidance from literature as to what is happening here. And given that I said, well, stodgy German labor market, not a lot of mobility, you can think of what we expected. Important point here is that firms can increase their innovative long-run performance by paying excess MIPs. So we split the measured marginal incomes empirically for one time period, and then we look whether in the following time period these firms attract more inventors. Yes, they do, and they also grow faster. Okay, let's briefly talk and advertise the data. So there are 3 data sets that we put together here. One is employee-related firm-level information starting in '92. So you can't do GDR research, German Democratic Republic research on it, but anything after reunification is in there. We have labor market biographies of inventors. By the way, those have been used in high-level publications. Card, Christian Dussmann and so forth have used these. We focus on biographies of inventors, and we have identified 150,000 or so biographies of inventors that are listed on patent filings at the EPO and the German Patent Office. We focus on inventors with at least one patent application between 1999 and 2011. So we combine those, and we also have an inventor patent file. That's the file we carried over to our friends at the IAB. They matched that with the labor market biographies. By the way, those matches are a very heartwarming exercise. So when you bring the patent data over, you match them with the social security data, you get in the first round anything between 85 and 88% perfect matches. The reason being that both data sets are of a legal nature. Both data sets have information, typically, of the person and of the firm. So you find ample ways of matching there. You have 4 sets of addresses and so forth. You can do a lot. That works really nicely. And the final 7% to get up to 95% are also feasible. Okay, I will skip that because otherwise. So we need a group, we need a matching group, okay, in order to find out what the inventors who are listed on a patent gain more than others who are in a similar situation. Unfortunately, our data don't offer the advantage that the Finnish data have, that we have access to other people who are randomly matchable in the data set. So we have to look in our inventor universe. And we simply thank you. We use as, we have treated inventors who have no patent filing 8 years earlier, after 8 years, 5 years relative to the focal filing. And then we have control inventors who, in that particular time window, do not have a patent, but are inventors, okay? So that's an unusual way of constructing a control group. We use coarse-and exact matching to find our control group. We compare them. I can show you the statistics. My wonderful discussant can discuss that. We think that we match them quite nicely, and we have a decent tool for diff analysis. So how do we estimate this marginal income per patent? Essentially, we take a template, that is Philippe's work. We take the structure here where we have an interaction between we let a time window run from year -4 prior to the invention. Invention is timed at the filing, at the priority date. And interact that, the time dummies with the inventor dummy for the time window -4 till 10. So that's a long time window, but it's important to us because we really want to get into the build-up of this MIP, because we don't know ex ante what it means. So, and of course the regression contains the usual Mincer experience, tenure square, and so forth regressors. This is it, okay? I had not expected that. Now, after reading Philippe's work, I may have expected that. But the gain in marginal income per patent starts relatively early. And remember, this is diff and diff, okay? And I cannot tell you from this graph alone that this inventor has been with the same employer the whole time. So think of the possibility that prior to T, when the application happens, that person has bargained in the labor market and has gone to somebody else, and maybe the bargain was good, right? Or maybe after the filing, there has been some bargaining process, and the result has been good and has contributed to this pattern. Or maybe it all came from the employer who saw that labor results were going in, the invention was coming around in the years prior to the filing, and that already elicited positive increments in wage payments. All of that is feasible. What we can do with this is we can dissect this and we can find out what are sort of the firm fixed effects, what's due to industry, and what's the rest, okay? And we do that here. And that is the foundation for saying 50% of this is firm specific. And we can do this over time, as you see. I was very surprised how nicely these things track, okay? And I don't think that that is an artifact. But I'll listen to Mercedes. So, it varies considerably, MIP varies considerably across firms. We now look essentially at other features, and the two features that we want to look at in particular is complementarity. So do the firms have complementary assets? Unfortunately, that is where our data might be a little bit weak. We take the size of the patent portfolio here. We can also take the size of the patent portfolio in the same technology classification that yields relatively similar results. And the other thing is markups, okay? Is the firm in an industry that allows it to be financially, I wouldn't say relaxed, but to give it strategic freedom to pay out more? Or is it under strong competitive pressure that limits that capability? Okay? And in order to do that now, let me take this long time structure and compress that. And that is, again, similar to what Philippe and others have done. So I'm now estimating sort of the average MIP, which is 5.4%, as you can see here. And if I now distinguish between zero citation patents and non-zero citation patents, you see that quality matters. So I'm abbreviating now. Yes, I am taking citations as a value correlate and a quality indicator. I'm not deterred by any other results. It seems to work. Okay, now let's condition on technological complementarity and markups. So again, if we take all patterns, introduce the triple interaction now, we see that complementarity matters and that markups matter. And then, once again, if we distinguish between zero citation and non-zero citation, we also get results that we largely expect, namely that complementarity reacts relatively strongly to the citation, or actually markups are zero for the zero citation patterns. You see that the zero citation patterns still give inventors a MIP that is significantly different from zero in the case of complementarity. But again, non-zero patterns are better. Okay, so that leads us finally to thinking about labor mobility. And that leads to very interesting results. So this is not the MIP. This is the annual share of inventors changing employers. And we have dissected that. We show you top inventors that got a lot of citations later on, and other inventors. And the result here is that the good ones, the ones that turn out to be good, let me be precise, okay? A lot of them leave prior to the filing. They change employer. And our interpretation is they go to the employer that can exploit their knowledge, their skills, better than the previous employer. And that employer is willing to invest in that expectation and pay into the margin, the wage margin, prior to the filing of the patent. And just to show you, the pre-movers gain more than the average, especially when they're high quality. The high quality ones also gain more in the post-filing moves. So we then take this key result through the paces a little bit. We again analyze whether the complementarity and the markup relationships are there, as I showed them before, and they are indeed there. I will not go into all of the details. And then we turn to the question whether the discretion that these firms have in setting the compensation for inventions, whether that plays a role. So we compute a firm-specific marginal income per patent, purely empirically, in one time period. And then we look at the follow-up time period and try to find out whether the growth in inventors is positive. And what you see here is that, again, for the firms that have high complementarity or high markups, this is very pronounced. So, being in the high firm-specific MIP group, being in complementarity, being with high markups gives you the best conditions in order to profit from the invention. We do that with the number of future patent filings. By the way, the row structure is the same here. So the second one is, I apologize for not bringing it in, is high complementarity, low complementarity. 4 and 5 are high markups, low markups, okay? So again, we find that the firm-specific MIP, okay, correlates with the number of future patent filings, and at the firm level now, and with the number of future citations that the firm gets. And out of that, we conclude that this is an interesting labor market instrument for firms. The MIP, the marginal income per patent, is actionable. You can use that to attract good inventors if you have complementarity and if you have the financial leeway via markups to do that. Okay, so we integrate two components, human resources and compensation schemes. So we're back at the fuzzy, the warm, the Bob Gibbons type determinants of organizational performance, as we were yesterday in the Marx papers and the Wills paper. We use a novel data set that we think has some potential for this study, but also for further studies. And we establish that inventors can earn significant returns. That is not so new. Other people have shown that before. That they can exploit between firm heterogeneity, and that firms can use the discretionary wage setting in order to attract inventors and thus improve their own performance. Thank you very much.
So thank you for the opportunity to discuss this paper. I have consumed many of Dietmar's papers, so it's an honor to be able to discuss one of his papers. So thank you for the opportunity to do that. And I want to congratulate to the team of co-authors. This is a great paper. Also, it has a great appendix, so you can replicate the analysis, and I always appreciate that. Also, I was mentioning Dietmar, I teach entrepreneurship to life science students. So I always bring the lawyers to the classroom. And the lawyers tell the students, do not publish, patent and prosper. And this is what this paper is showing us, right? If you patent, there's going to be a high return to patenting. And they're estimating how much. And actually, it's pretty high, right? 58,000 euros. Accumulated earning per a single patent and during 15 years. And they give us a benchmark that's similar to the annual wage of an inventor in Germany. So a very high return. I would like to know also how does it compare to the wages of an innovation manager to get a sense of the opportunity cost of patenting versus these inventors doing something else, maybe managing the innovation within the firm. They have a very high estimate of the return on patenting. Also an important result, these effects last 2 years prior to filing, and then 9 years after filing, and also a lot of the return happen before filing. And they have many interpretations for that. I have an additional interpretation that maybe these are milestones. Because before you file a patent, there are many things you have to do in order to get the patent done. It may be some experiments, so it may be many explanations to what's happening there, but it's 20%, it's very meaningful. But this is good news to inventors. Do not delay patenting, because then you're going to be losing a very meaningful income. So now, I'm going to reflect a little bit about the control, so that to see if it helps us interpret some of the results. The control is very unique, right? Because for a focal inventor, I'm going to be looking at temporarily non-patenting inventors. So this is the control at some point is going to become an inventor. But during 8 years, it's not patenting. It looks very similar to the focal inventor in age, in industry, in experience. However, it's going to wait to patent for more than 8 years. And that's going to raise some questions, right? So who is this control? Some benefits of the control is that the focal inventor and the control, for sure, that in the risk set of potential inventors to be, because both of them become inventors. So actually, they're similar. But maybe the problem is that they are too similar, right? This is different from prior work, like the work of, for example, Philippe, Aghion, where he's going to be comparing an inventor to a non-inventor. So I wonder whether what you are estimating is a lower bound for this return to patenting. Now, again, who are these match inventors, the control group? Because they are delaying patenting for a long time. So who are they? Remember, they have the same age, the same experience, but they take a long time to patent. Why is that? And I wonder whether these inventors they're just going to have one patent, the one-time inventors. And whether a lot of what you're estimating here is coming from the comparison between a repeat inventor versus these one-time inventors. So I want to try to understand better what is the return to patenting for someone that only is going to have one patent in their whole career versus the ones that are going to have repeat patenting, all right? Now, My second comment relates to the team. The paper is wonderful, but the paper doesn't talk about the team of inventors in a patent. It doesn't model the team. Indirectly, the team matters because, for example, they find that if the patent has more citations, the inventor is going to get a higher return. And if a patent has more inventors, it's going to be more likely that you're going to have more citations. So it's there indirectly, but I think we need to think more carefully about what is the role of the team. For example, maybe team size matters also for the return of the patent. If a patent has 5 inventors versus 10 inventors, the firm may not be willing to pay the same amount of money to the focal inventory if you have contributed proportionally very little to the patent, because there are many other co-inventors in the team. The team also, or at least to me, it makes it a little bit difficult to interpret the mobility results. Because who has the knowledge and the know-how and expertise to create the patent? The focal inventor or the team? If it's a solo patent, then it's easy to see that I can move to another firm, I will file the patent with the new employer. But if there is a team, why is this focal inventor so important that's going to get such a high return just by moving to a different employer? So, and this is just maybe me, but I'm trying to think what's the role of a team. And now, teams are very important because, for example, in the US, 75% of all the patents have a team. So that's why we cannot ignore, what's happening. The paper does an incredible job in explaining many drivers of the variation in what they call the marginal income per patent. And I particularly find very novel and important the results of between-firm variation. And in particular, actually, the firms can pay extra for a patent to attract the talent. And I wonder whether that is related to the whole literature about superstar firms. Are they just paying a lot of extra income to the inventors to attract them? Is that the reason why IBM is the top 1 inventor in the US? Is that because they pay extra? So I want to link it to the literature. And then finally, I have 2 maybe additional dimensions that we could study. One is, what is the return for patenting when it's the first patent versus is a subsequent patent? And the reason I'm mentioning this is that I'm talking to many firms that they're trying to get more new young inventors. They want to make sure that their employees become inventors faster. And maybe one way to do that is that I'm going to give you a premium for your first patent. So do you see something in the data that there is going to be this difference in the return to a patent if it's the first one versus subsequent ones? And the second dimension is that in academia, more and more faculty are patenting. There is papers like, for example, by Pierre Azoulay and others, how there is an increasing incentive for faculty to patent in order to get promotions. And I wonder whether you can also estimate what is the return of a patent for an academic inventor. And with that, I will just emphasize this was a fantastic paper to read, so thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Thank you so much for wonderful and very thoughtful comments. So let me try to respond to the ones where I have an answer, and also confess maybe the ones where I have to think a little bit more. So the observations that you have are absolutely astute. We have this long time window. We chose that intentionally because initially we didn't know how the MIP develops over time. Right? So we went to a long time window. We may be able to shorten that, and then we can also get the control group into sort of, we can select from another sub population there. Why do they delay? Let me point out that there's one thing that really distinguishes corporate inventors from academic inventors and academic scientists, which is hierarchy. These folks have bosses, and they tell them what to do. So it may very well be that the bosses say, hey, you go into the design department first, and there they don't do patents, okay? Because it's not the research department or something else. So I don't find it that surprising that not everybody is patenting at the same time. But you gave us some good ideas what we can do in order to check that better, and we should definitely do that. Then you said repeat versus multiple. That's a great idea, repeat versus multiple inventors. And then there's the point about teams. The share of team inventions in Germany is, I think, 10, 15 percentage points lower than in the United States. Don't ask me why. But we do have team inventors here, and we should probably at least provide a robustness check that there's not some kind of team effect driving the results here. Superstar firms, we can unfortunately not look at the identity of the firms. Okay, we can say something about firm size and so forth, but that is completely anonymized. The data set is absolutely great. It has deep data, but first, it has some shortcomings as well, and the Labor Market Agency is very strict about that. Last point, academic patenting. Sorry, I have to say no, because most of the professorial patenting, they are civil servants. They are not in the social security system, so they don't even pop up in our data set. They are in our patent data, and they make up the 5% that I was talking about that we will never match to the social security data because they are simply not in there. They're public servants with their own social security structure and so forth. Premium for first patenting? Let's explore. I don't know. I don't know of any official policy in German corporates that do that, but maybe the data will show us. Thank you.